Okay, so right now it's 6:11 p.m. on the 16th of April, 2025, on a Wednesday evening. Daily period of the cycles of life is G period. And we have a very, very opportune and propitious period coming up here. Namely, specifically, we just entered a 3.5 day long lunar unit that is positive in nature at 2:22 p.m. this afternoon, approximately, earlier today. So we've got a 3.5 day positive long lunar unit ahead of us. And this evening from 7:52 to 10:52 p.m., using the winter time calculation of time, yes, we have a 3-hour window of unique opportunity because it is a high tide in the nearest maritime location at 10:52 p.m. in reality. And obviously 3 hours before a high tide, it's a positive short lunar unit there. It's a 3-hour space that is a positive short lunar unit. And we've got the long 3.5 day positive lunar unit. These two combined with each other equate a double positive unit. Now, I'm using the wintertime calculation of time, dear viewers. And so should you, because the data that we're getting right now is basically, when you look at the clock here since the 30th of March, they've set the clock forward by an hour. So you have to subtract an hour and make sure so that you're using the wintertime calculation of time, dear guests and friends and visitors and viewers and all of y'all. Because otherwise, it's an artificially created condition that is illusory and leads to problems because it's inaccuracy. God damn it. So what I'm saying is just use the wintertime calculation of time all year round. That's the actual time of day that it is. So that's why I had to think for a minute earlier. Get those details from 7:52 to 10:52, because 7, 8, 9, 10, that's 3 hours before a high tide. We have a high tide at 10:52 p.m. later this evening. Wow. And that's a positive short lunar unit. And then, so during those 3 hours before that high tide, we have unique, there's a lot of opportunity in terms of an energy, quality of energy being present. It's as if during that particular time, because of life being cyclical, at this time there's it's like a double positive unit. So it's 3 hours before the high tide. So that short little unit there of 3 hours is positive. And then the long one of 3.5 days that we're in right now for the next 3.5 days basically is also positive. So this results in a double positive unit where the quality or the state that the energy that is prevalent everywhere in the universe and that has an immediate effect on Earth, human, and life activity, because of the force exerted by the moon on Earth and the effect it has on Earth, human, and life activity, it's basically double positive in nature, being a positive, energetically masculine, life-giving and increasing energy and quality of energy at that time. It's like a phase that it's like the sort of the energy that powers the entire universe all the time goes through different phases. and has high levels and low levels. And these seem to be legible, and they actually are legible by the lunar cycles. Okay. And the reason why this is important is the following, because listen, let's take the new moon as a reference point here. The time and date of a new moon, right? So you've got the time and the date of a new moon. At that very moment, if you had, we could put it on a graph and it would be like, here's the bottom line. And here on the bottom line is, right, so you got the bottom line. Here on this bottom line is the point of the new moon, okay? And then basically for approximately 14 days, there's an upward progression for 14 days, reaching a highest point on this top line, and that's a full moon. So between the new moon from the bottom line going up to the point of the full moon on the top line, there's this increasing curve. And what this actually shows to us is it's as if through this we can see, the quality and the charge either being negative or positive, and the amount of mass gained, almost like the volume level of the energy that's permeating and powering the complete total universe and what it's in at that time. So, for example, 3.5 days before a full moon, you have got things at close to their peak in terms of energy and just the amount of volume, actually, like the energy levels of the life force and the life-giving energy that is universal and that has an effect on how everything is, including Earth human life activity. So the reason why this is so interesting and so important is because if you look at it from, let's say, new moon to full moon, and this goes on and on and on. Like I said, starting at the new moon, okay, it's like there at this bottom line of standard amount of like volume and currency level, like you've got this new moon, and then things start to increase gradually for 14 days till the full moon. And so what we can see there is that it's as if what's happening is, if you were going to gauge things and estimate and be able to also gauge the reactions to your actions being either negative or positive, and how much return you would get on an investment, how much you're going to achieve basically by what you set out to accomplish. It's as if the state that the moon is in, the fullness level of it, or the emptiness, or the level where it's at in this sort of ongoing, in its cycles from new, then 14 days later to full, being the highest point again, and then after full, it decreasing again to new. It's like what you're getting is you're getting, and you're seeing actually, it's almost like it's like a measuring, two-dimensionally represented. It could be looked at as on a graph. We could see the amount of, like the volume or the amount of energy, like the volume level of and the amount of energy that is present in the universe at this time, based on the fullness level of the moon or the emptiness level of it. Because you see, I've looked into this and I've found this is correct, and I've observed this, and I've used knowledge from certain books that gave me basic information about how this works, and then I investigated this and I observed, and I found that what I was uh, systematically observing was actually showing me more information about how life is cyclical and how cycles of life and life actually works, and thus giving me more ability to accomplish good things, leading to health and wealth and so on and so forth, right? So what happened was, for example, now, if I'm going to practice this practically, what I have to do right now is I have to look at the cycles of life that I'm in right now. Okay. And so what's happening is, for example, at this very moment right now, by now it's like 6:21 p.m., 16th of April, 2025, daily period of G. We've got a positive short lunar unit coming up at 6:50. So hold on. Actually, at 7:52 till 10:52, because at 10:52 there's a high tide at the nearest maritime location. 3 hours before a high tide is a positive short unit there. And we're in a 3.5 day positive long lunar unit since the afternoon at like 2:22 p.m. today on Wednesday, the 16th of April, 2025, right? Okay, so what's happening is this. Knowing that is one thing. There's another thing, though. On the 13th, so that was 3 days ago. Yeah. 3 days ago at 2:22 a.m., that was last Sunday, right? We had a full moon. So if we zoom out even further, the moon was full 3 days ago, and it reached its peak at 2:22 a.m. on Sunday, 13th of April, 3 days ago, right? Like 2:22 a.m. basically. Since then, it was at its highest point on the top, right? Here's the bottom line with the new moon here, increasing to full at the top. So it was at its highest point, and now it's decreasing again. And everything, listen, and this is, it'll be all right, because we actually have to register as a fact that now it's like the overall volume and level of activity, the level of, or the, like, the volume actually of the standard energy that is in the universe and that powers everything is currently in a phase of decreasing again, because the moon was full 3 days ago. It's emptying out now, decreasing, and then will reach its lowest standard point again when the moon is completely emptied out and it's new, and then it will begin to increase again. So we're on a downward curve here. Now, what's good is I was technically able to accomplish what I had to secure the necessary components to essentially make it through a certain amount of time. And this is important because, look, I know for a fact that actually what's happening now is things are decreasing very, very, very gradually for another 11 days. And then things reset again and then begin to increase again. Now, there's a general rule, though. There's always a certain amount of providence that's always working and at work. Whether it's an empty new moon and a negative short and a long lunar unit, etc., or it's a double positive, there's always a certain amount of standard providence that's operating. And it's like there's always a minimum amount of a sort of a positive, an eternally positive, like a plus type of charge that's operational in the universe and in life and in everything. Because it's alive. Yet this goes through different phases, from low to high, like from new moon to full moon, then from full moon to empty moon, then from empty moon to new moon. Yeah, wait, hold on. Wait a second. From new moon to full moon, and then from full moon again, emptying out to new moon. Exactly. Right. So this goes on, and then if you're really going to be accurate and actually have a seriously accurate overview of the cycles of life that you're in and know, listen, okay, now I've made a great discovery. Hallelujah. See, the further we zoom out and look at the big picture and all the cycles of life that are going on right now that we are in, the more we are actually equipped and totally provided for and prepared and superiorly capable to master every particular thing that could happen. Moreover, we're able to make the right things happen. And the reason for this is because if I know, look, the more I know, the better. The more you know, the better, yet it brings responsibility to act with wise judgment, because you know that then things can work and then they can't work, and you make it work while it works. It's like taking advantage of the wind with your sails when it's windy and you're getting there, yeah, versus not doing anything and just, no, you got to be wisely active. So what I just realized is that if I know this, see, it's okay because I know when things are negative, I know when things are positive. That gives me a great advantage, because knowing when they are negative and when they will be negative and why, and also when they will be positive again, we can always identify the right sort of windows of opportunity to act in to actually definitely increase our health, our wealth, and everything, right? So what I'm saying is that those things that appear to be obstacles in life, anything whatsoever that is problematic, perhaps, anything that is the opposite of wealth and health, basically, there's a time that it has. And there's a time when you can get health and wealth massively, quickly, really fast. Like the time when it's a double positive unit. And we're coming up on one in, if I'm correct, like 2 hours. But so now here's the thing. Look, the average human being who's watching this, like myself, so to say, I'm just using plain English here, could map this stuff out the way that I do, and I'm about to do that because of the sheer importance of it. You got to map out the lunar cycles on a graph, actually. So what this actually looks like is you have two lines, one at the top, one here. It's two long lines, low point for the new moon, high point for the full moon. And then you always have these zigzags every month. And then, you could do it for, let's say, from new moon to full moon, for example, like on a sheet of paper. I'm about to do this, actually, because of the sheer importance. At that point, you have a map. And this map is telling you, wow, no, this is true, though. I'm correct with this. And my theory has been proven correct time and time again, actually. Because I discovered the details of this through using the knowledge that I had and that I was given from certain books, and then analyzing the system further, scientifically experimenting successfully, then evaluating and analyzing the data from my scientific experiments in life, right? And then seeing how what happened and why things happened in retrospect. That was like a re-examination of what happened. So we fully discovered and figured out why these things happened at this time and how come. So now we know what can happen at this coming time, and so on, and make the right things happen. It's actually what's going on. It's an ongoing study. of the cycles of life. Now, it's actually interesting. If I know this, if I have a map of the lunar cycles, right? It's like I have basically pretty much, well, you got to have all the life cycles watchfully on your radar. You got to have an overview of all the life cycles you're in. The daily period of 3 hours, 25 minutes. The short lunar unit of 12 hours. The long lunar unit of 3.5 days. The annual life cycle period that you're in. So that is basically starting on your birthday. For 365 days, there are 7 52-day periods that you could be in at any given point in time, right? Then that includes the annual health, life, and business cycle. And then you've got the simple period of overall human life, right? So that, based on your age, from 0 to 144 years, you're in some segment of 7-year cycles at this time. And then you got to have an overview of your soul personality too. Because it tells you your strengths and things that you're good at and what you should do, what you shouldn't seek to, and so on, basically. Yet, focusing on the lunar cycles again, these are so important because it's as if, and this is true, the heavens are like clockwork for us to read and see, okay, oh, it's 100 degrees. Okay, I'm going to do this now instead of doing that because it's hot. Oh, it's 50. Okay, great, let's do this. It's the same thing. It's all, and all of that what is the universe as I-rated by the I-rater was perfectly I-rated, created. And it all is there to serve us so that we can serve the highest good and our fellow human beings and accomplish God's will, hopefully. So now, if you have a map of the lunar cycles, you know, the moon is showing you. It's like, it's actually, of course, because I used to think, wait a minute. I used to think that, no, the moon is a direct indicative, it's like a measurement reading tool. It's like a tool that you can look at and read and measure the volume of the energy in the universe, what volume and what mass and how high, like how the state that the energy that's always present in the universe is going through different phases of higher and lower amounts at different times, and those are the lunar cycles, and it's actually an accurate clock. I just figured this out because for a while I thought, well, the moon itself is only having an effect on Earth and human life activity, including the tides, because of the force that the moon has being like a separate body from the Earth plane. And actually, what the moon is doing, where it's having an effect on Earth, human and life activity, including it affecting the tides, for example, it's not doing that because it's the moon that does that. It's doing that because of the phases that the energy in the universe that's behind everything and how everything works is going through. And that's why it's going through the moon, and the moon is doing what it's doing, and the tides are doing what it's doing. It's not that, because I didn't know this before. Now I know this, actually. See, this is why we have to investigate these matters. And in the form of a tutorial here, while I'm seeking to help others to prosper legitimately, what keeps happening is I keep discovering more good information. It's really interesting. Thank God Almighty. So what's happening is that the lunar phases and the phases that the moon goes through, they're not because of the moon itself or because that's what the moon does. It's because of what the energy in the universe does that is behind everything and in everything and governs everything in the universe in the form of the cycles of life, and also makes the moon go through the phases it does that then have an effect on Earth and human life activity. That is actually correct. Because it's not the moon itself, because the moon too is powered by the same energy that powers the entire universe and that goes through different phases. And these phases are also actually the cycles of life. Because, see, the lunar units, they are cycles of life too. That's one of the cycles of life that you're in all the time. Like, at any given point in time, it's either, it's been a full moon 3 days ago, or it was whatever state the moon is in. That's a cycle of life that's going on and that's happening right now. So that we're in and that can be utilized for our advantage, for good things. That's very interesting now. I see now. See, I used to think, for a long time, for years actually, I used to think that the moon causing, for example, a high tide at the ocean, right, at this harbor at 12 a.m., and then again later at 12 p.m., the force being exerted by the moon, as explained by science, they haven't fully discovered all of what's going on with the lunar effects on Earth and human life activity, even the tides. It's not that the moon is generating this power that then, when it passes, Earth, causes there to be tides and so on. It's that the power that is running the entire universe is cyclical and goes through phases, and these are also expressed by what the moon does. That's what's going on. Wow. Because I was asked, so it actually is a case that if you see, you can map the lunar cycles. It's easy to do this. You just have to look at the tides from your nearest maritime location where there's a tide chart. You can see the short ones. You can see what time of day there's a high tide and a low tide, and then a high tide and a low tide, and so on and so forth. So you can identify the short and so the positive or negative short units. And then, like I said, new moon, 3.5 days after a new moon, negative 3.5 day long lunar unit. 3.5 days after that, 3.5 day positive. Then again, 3.5 negative, until finally 3.5 days before a full moon, you've got a positive 3.5 day long lunar unit again. And then after the full moon, the 3.5 day negative again. And so that just keeps going on and on and on. It's all orderly and can be mapped. Yet now I see for a fact, and this is so interesting, that, see, it's like the moon is, it gives us information that could be put on a piece of paper on a chart where you've got a blank piece of paper, a line at the top and a line at the bottom, and at the bottom there's a new moon, at the top there's a full moon, and there's this peak that goes up from new moon to full moon, new moon, new moon, full moon. And so you can see, and based on this graphic representation, you can actually see, we can see this. It's actually, it's true, it's correct. It's a representation of the fullness level of the moon, and thereby, by this fullness level, from new to full, and from full to new, and from new to full, wherever it's at, we can see that it's like the level of either a basic standard baseline amount or a standard high level amount. Wherever in between those two levels, like the standard base level and the standard high point, we can see at what level or volume the energy that powers the entire universe is in as it goes through phases. For example, this phase being physically represented and visible by the new moon going to the full. So it's going from new, increasing to full, then it's its peak, then it decreases again to new, then it increases again to full, reaching its peak. It's like you have a meter that shows you the phases from standard basic level of low to standard basic level of high that the energy in the universe is going through. And this has an effect on what the moon does, what the tides do, what humans do, all of this. And it's correct. I'm accurate with this. I know I'm correct because to assume that, so, okay, listen, look. That being said, okay, good enough. The next point is that the proof why this is correct is that the moon is not separate from all of the energy that's in the universe itself. All the energy that's in the universe goes through phases from low to high, from high to low, from low to high. It's always energetic, though. And so the moon is not separate from this. It's not like the moon itself is running from a different sort of a, cosmic universal energy that gives way to any type of life and matter and movement and existence and all that. It's not separate from the universal power source. It's running its course. It's going from new to full and so on. All of this based on the energy behind everything, or the invisible yet totally visible energy of the universe that's in everything. So it is correct then to assume and to say that the moon is like a meter that shows you the energy levels that the universe is at, that the energy of the universe is in, from basic standard low to basic standard high. And that's why, listen, I sought to accomplish many, many good things a couple of days ago before the full moon, 3.5 days before it, in that positive space of 3.5 days, and especially in those positive short spaces. And I did manage to accomplish things. It's interesting now what happened is I have to be honest and reflect and say, some of the things that happened were different things than I had intended to make happen, though they were successful and perhaps they were better. That could be. So what we're doing here is we're seeking to increase the accuracy of our overall operation, scientific operation, properly applying wisdom. Because, see, look, if I know how to secure my necessary goods financially, both physically and metaphysically, then that's pretty good. There's a source that is giving everything at all times in different amounts and different packages. You have to be able to access the divine providence that is available to the maximum levels possible. And this is just because of how life is cyclical, and there's specific times when certain things are accessible and you reach for them and you get them. And the same is not the case at other times. And knowing this, so it's all written in a book called Self-Mastery and Fate with the Cycles of Life. So get a copy. And then, of course, having a good book with wisdom in it and reading, studying, and applying this in your life successfully, you gain further wisdom and knowledge through scientific experimentation, safely, wisely, and then reflecting on what happened and analyzing what happened, the data from it, and then you gain additional and even more intelligence and insight into how life exactly works, also cyclically, and how these cycles of life and how life with its cycles works in more and more detail, where now that is very, very valuable knowledge and wisdom, because what this enables us to actually accomplish would be, for example, first of all, I know what state the universe is in right now. When I say that, it's like, I guess the only way to explain it is we're looking at the fact that life is like a positive energy or a vibe or a force that is permanent. And this goes through phases of low to high, high to low, low to high, high to low. Those are the cycles of life also. And then if I know, like, see, but this is possible. So I can literally sit here and know right now that because of the fact that we had a full moon 3 days ago, approximately, things are decreasing. The overall trend is a decrease. Now, there can be a positive 3.5 day lunar unit now that we're in. And then, again, there'll be a negative 3.5 day, and there'll be the 3.5 day positive, and so on and so forth. Yet, this opens up a lot of capabilities and possibilities and operational capabilities here. Because, so first of all, one of the main things is that everything that we even basically accomplish or don't is governed by the cycles of life. So there's an automatic system at work that the Creator put in place that's perfect, that is already basically determining to a large degree what will even happen, even while we have a free will to make this happen or that happen, right? It's like I can force myself to go out and run uphill even when I don't feel like it, while knowing that there's another time, it could be 3 hours later, that there's a positive unit again, that in that time I feel and I can easily run up that hill. So the wise decision is do it at the right time. But still, we can still somehow, forcibly accomplish whatever it is, even if we have to go against the current. It's just not the best way. But so even that, though, you start to actually, when you zoom out, you see that everything that is the way it is, even your capability to make things a certain way using your free will and properly applying wisdom, therefore operating scientifically, what actually happens is that too is actually governed by the cycles of life. Now, the proof for this is that if you observe attentively, you pay attention to the lunar units. When is there a high tide? When is there a low tide? Are we in a negative short, for example, 3.5 hours before a high tide? Or are we in a negative short unit, like right after a high tide or whatever, or just before a low, 3 hours before a low tide? Okay, so you start to see what's going on around you, and you see that it's all as if it's all explained by what is written there, and the information is showing you. What I'm saying is that, for example, 3.5 days before a full moon, just take a look around you. There's a lot of human activity. There's a lot going on. It's busy, busy, busy. During the 3.5 days after a new moon, it's like the place is empty. Pay attention to this. You'll see what I'm talking about. And so, if you have insight into these things, you can coordinate your life's goals and objectives properly so that you will be basically living, working, and successful in harmony with the automatically, basically unchangeable and perfect, actually, system of the cycles of life, because that's how it works. There is no escaping this. It's not necessary either. It's more helpful than anything, even though it's systematic and you have to operate in harmony with it to utilize it to your advantage for good, right? To get positive results, you have to use positive units, right? Yet, it's just as systematic as how the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Rises in the east, sets in the west. It just goes on like this, day and night, male, female, etc. It just goes on and on and on like this. That's okay, though, because this can be used, it can be utilized to our advantage. And that's the thing about self-mastery. You're mastering your destiny. It's like, you don't have to worry about what could happen if you know, first of all, what can happen at what times, what is more likely to happen, wherefore it is the time seek to accomplish that and actually make that happen versus the opposite. For example, that's a serious amount of security that results from this wisdom. So, for example, now, how can I coordinate my efforts most effectively? If I'm working on something, okay, wow. I did that though. Okay, hold on. I'm just having a really interesting revelation about this and how this works further. What happened was I was working on something from the last new moon till the fullest point of the last full moon 3 days ago. And apparently, I was expecting results to occur, and different results came. Now, so I'm analyzing something I was working on and the results that came out of this. What this tells us and what I just figured out was, in order to accomplish something, the likelihood of it being accomplished, whether it's some type of whatever legit life goal or objective it is, if it's, for example, gaining employment within this particular company, performing this specific, work, then actually what should happen is, and this is based on what goes on with the lunar units actually, from zero, from baseline, new moon, lowest point, resetted point, fresh start point, going up and up and up to full moon, fullest increase, peak point, right? Standard high point. That's how stuff happens. So ideally you would, when is that? In 12 days. Okay. See, ideally you would start something new right after the new moon, harnessing the positive units. So 3.5 days after a new moon, actually, right? Because, see, these cycles of life, they overlap into each other too. So generally, begin something new. Begin working on achieving or accomplishing your objective right after the new moon. But there's one thing, though, that has to be regarded, and that's based on the lunar unit that you're in, the lunar units. It either being a double negative, negative, neutral, positive, or double positive, the results of a particular thing are already essentially sort of pre-programmed because of the life cycle point of origin. Okay, so the point of origin of the life cycle of every particular thing, as everything has a life cycle, sort of determines its results, or it shapes and frames its quality from its point of launching. So everything in life has a life cycle with a definite point of beginning. Prime example, human acquaintances. There's a time when you will meet a person for the first time. So that's the first time you meet this person face to face, shake hands, talk a little bit, whether this is your future wife, your employer, whoever, whatever. Any human acquaintance, this is one of the most important examples actually, has a definite, so the life cycle of this human acquaintance, no matter who it is, it has a definite point of origin at a particular time. And this time is going to be based on whenever it happened within certain life cycles. Within certain cycles of life that you were in at that time when you met this person for the first time. And these life cycles, so these life cycles, it's like they program and have an effect on because of the quality of the state that the universe is in at that time in those life cycles. When this new cycle began, this new life cycle of this human acquaintance because it has a beginning when you met, and that's the beginning of it. And so when this began, the quality that the state that the universe was in at that time pre-programmed how it was going to be. Now, this can be changed over time. So if this thing is begun in a double negative unit, right? That's why that happened too. See, I'm just reflecting on something that happened today. It already kind of, it's like kicking a soccer ball with 1,000 pounds of force and it flying 5 miles, I don't know, versus kicking a soccer ball with 10 pounds of force and it flies 50 feet. It's the same thing we're talking about here. So, on the subject of how did I get into this? Right, based on whatever life cycles, based on the life cycles wherein a particular thing, like a human acquaintance, took place for the first time, this tends to permeate and form the general quality of the life cycle of this particular thing. So listen, where does this become relevant? Okay, this becomes relevant where if you're seeking to accomplish something, financial wealth increase, health increase, you meet a person, that's the HR person, right? You meet this person at the right time, you're going to have a good working relationship with this person. You meet them at the wrong time, it's not going to work. And these times are all explained by the description of the daily periods of the cycles of life and the cycles of life, short, long, etc. It's all in the book. Yet, this is the basic idea, and it's correct. I've examined this to be true. I've experienced this. It's true. If you meet people at the right time in the right life cycle periods, that meeting turns into a good acquaintance, friendship, working relationship, etc. And at the same time, it could be at the wrong time and it won't become very good, and it could be the opposite of good even. That's happened too. Sometimes the best thing is to literally move somewhere new because of that. Like, generally, that's why you got to practice prudence in everyday life, because if you go out for a walk at the right time of the day, you meet somebody randomly on the street, that person can become your best friend, and at another time, it can become your worst enemy. That's how life works, and you got to be honest and responsible with that fact because it's true. Whether you like it or not, it's the truth. It's because of what goes on at different times. So utilizing the right times to right things, you're good to go all the time. And things are good all the time, basically. And when they don't seem good, it's because of the time that it's in. I've gone through this systematically. I know what I'm talking about, and I can prove this. And moreover, you can try this, and you'll see that I'm right with this. So now, for example, let's say our goal and objective is to actually rightfully acquire about $5,000 within the next 14 days. Because it would really be practical to have that amount of money to rent an apartment, to buy groceries, to just utilize this for basic, legitimate human necessities. Okay. So then, first thing we got to do is, for example, we got to zoom out and look at what state is the universe in right now. Okay. It's just decreasing again from that last full moon 3 days ago. Things were at a peak. Now they're going to empty out again. Ideally, although there is room in between this, see, still a decreasing curve, it still has motion. It still has, there's always a basic amount of providence available. Okay? That can be worked with. It's like there's always a certain amount of life support that's standard, that's in effect. It's there. Ideally, you would begin something during the first positive units after a new moon, actually. Look, wait, before I say this, whatever it is that you're working on, whatever objective you have, there's a time when, oh, wait. To be more precise, right, is that there's actually a time when this thing, oh, we got to track and pay attention to this too. We got to have this watchfulness about this, because the idea to even do anything comes at a certain time. And based on the first time when this idea comes to you, is already predetermined whether or not it will be successful. Because you could have, okay, so this is called a cosmic impulse or a divine inspiration. Basically, you have an idea to do something, to go and apply at this place and work there for 3 months, so you make $9,000, and then that's it. That's as far as you've thought. Okay, so based on the time when this thought first came to you, right, it's already sort of predetermined as to whether or not it will work, basically speaking. Because what goes on is the first occurrence of a thing is its actual, like, it starts with a thought. Usually with human beings, we have a thought, an idea, and then we start thinking about this, talking about this, working on it, and doing it, and accomplishing it, generally speaking. Based on the time when this thought first came, though, if it was a time for that at that time, in that life cycle, it's a time for going on a journey. You have this thought of going on a journey. You follow this thought. You actually go on a journey at the right time. It will work. It'll be a good, long journey. Okay? At the same time, if you have the thought of going on a journey and it's in the wrong daily period to begin with, and it's not in the right life cycles, annual life cycle, etc., it's in the wrong 3-hour period, it's in the wrong 3-hour, 25-minute period that's also happening, it's in the wrong 3.5-day period that's also happening, it's in the wrong 52-day period that you're in, and you try and do it, it's just not going to work. Okay? So that's the thing that has to be thought of too. Because I might have ideas. We all have ideas on how to increase our wealth, health, be successful in life legitimately. The moment these ideas come, we got to be watchful too. We always have to be watchful and pay attention to the cycles of life that we're in, because I could have an idea to become a fireman at 5 a.m. on Saturday or Thursday. Well, turns out at that time of day, it is not the time for that thing. Am I correct with that? Yeah, G period. Not the time for starting something new like this. Whereas another time of the day is a C period, time for starting new things. And I'm like, man, I realize if I were to do this, I would be able to achieve this and this and this because I have this. This is what is, that actually would work. You know it. Okay, then you think about this further. You start doing this at the right time, it's going to work. So what happens is that everything has a definite point of origin in terms of it being a cosmic impulse or a thought or an idea leading to some human action to do something, accomplish something, or even just a thought and being able to figure out, is that true or is it not true? Is that real or is that not really accurate? And that has to do with the time that it shows up first, the first occurrence of it. If we pay attention to this, it's actually even better, because you could be thinking about going and doing this, but the first time you thought about this was more important, because that was already telling you when it was, if it's in harmony with the cycles of life or not. If it's out of harmony, forget about it. Now, if we have a good thought at the right time, wherefore it's propitious at that time, like a thought to become a strategic advisor. Okay, it's at the right time. You realize this showed up. This is the time wherefore it is right now for these type of things. If I work on this now, this is going to progress and grow, and it has a good beginning, and there's going to become something good of this. So we got to pay attention to the first occurrences of our thoughts that lead to us making decisions, including personal health, business life decisions. Because based on the time of like the inception of a thing, its ultimate result is basically almost predetermined. That having been said, the reason why I'm getting into these areas of detail is because I was talking about how, look, if you're going to start something new, start it during the first, so 3.5 days after a new moon, you're in a positive 3.5 day lunar unit. Start the new thing at the right time, at the right daily period, within the right 3-hour window, within the right 3-hour 25-minute window of the daily period, the short, long lunar unit, etc., within the right cycles of life to begin with. And then what should happen is it will gradually increase. It will gradually increase, and it will bear fruit sometime shortly before, on, or right after the full moon. That's what my earthly father, rest in peace, told me about these things, and he was correct, and I've observed this happen too. So it's like you're utilizing the complete and total ongoing systematic growth cycles that go on in the universe, where starting on a new moon, you begin something new, and then it reaches and increases till the point of full moon, where it reaches its maximum point of bearing fruit. And then you harvest this thing, and then everything decreases again to a new moon, and then you begin something new again, and it reaches increase, and you harvest it at full increase right before the full moon, right before, preferably. Because after the full moon again, everything goes and decreases again. So if you pay attention to this curve, like the literal graph mapped activity, and that's readable by the lunar units of the energy in the universe that gives way to everything, and the phases it goes through from standard low to standard high, full moon, standard low, new moon, standard high, full moon, standard low, new moon. If you pay attention to this, you can sort of do things at times. It's almost like if you were putting something, you're throwing something out there at a time when it's going to fly real far and high and bring in a maximum return, It's like, this is actually how life works. And also, did you know that any of the problems in life, so-called, they're all a result of ignorance of this particular system, because there's a time when I can make this good thing happen for sure, and something even better happens. And then the opposite at a different time. Knowing the difference is key.